Brad's neighborhood. Small town feel with big time ideas. After all, you are entitled to Brad's opinion. Here's your host, Brad Allard.
Well, this is as close to on time as we've had in a while, isn't it, buddy?
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, right. I guess because we don't have to worry about holding the guest's hand and all this other stuff. But we're going to be talking today about the business in Iran and also yesterday's primary. So it's a 2-for-1. And I'm going to have Josh jump in every now and then.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. If I'm swatting around, I'm not swatting his opinions away. It's these mega flies here that are going. That'll make a science fiction movie out of the size of these flies. What's the deal here?
I have no idea. I saw them buzzing around the building, and then people keep letting them in.
Well, so if I'm going like that, I'm not making a comment about Josh's statements. He's perfectly entitled to his opinion, even though I bet at the end of the show he's going to say, "You're right. I'm ready to enlist." You think?
Yeah, good luck with that.
Good luck with that. Okay. Well, anyway, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. I got some clips. I got some slides. I got the whole, the audio-visual thing working. And, it's interesting because I read a lot of this stuff. Being 63 has some advantages because, we've been through this for a long time. A lot of people of the younger generation, shall we say, they may know of our history with Iran from what they learned in school or picked up here and there. But having lived through it gives one an idea, a different perspective. So there you go. But before we do that, I want to talk about the sponsors, of course. But again, the usual caveat here: these are my views, not necessarily views of their sponsors, but they do think it's important that these things be discussed out in the open and publicly, et cetera, et cetera. So I really appreciate what they do. So thank you to Our Place. I was just there a couple of days ago. As usual, great breakfast as always. I'll be there probably this Monday because that's when our Sunday school men are going to go, and I'm sure the Iran war will come up more than once, and the primaries and whatnot. We talk about these things. We don't solve any problems, but the food is good and the service is good, and that's all that matters. And same with Gina's. I'll be there Monday night with one of the sponsors coming up. It's a little sponsor care kind of thing, but anyway, Gina's Pizza is great. Monday night is bingo night. Tuesday is chess night. Wednesday is karaoke night. Sunday always has live music. That's become kind of a go-to place for some people for a lot of people actually on Sunday night. I've been there a couple of times and it's pretty full. So Gina's Pizza and Our Place, thanks for all y'all do for the community, not just for sponsoring this, but also being a community citizen. All these guys are community citizens. That's what I like about my sponsors is that I can endorse them not just as business enterprises, but as people as well. And that makes it a lot easier to, gush all over them, like I'm about to do with John Williams here at Old Pro Roofing. Local folks here, you want to be able to deal with the local guys as much as you can. Where's the logo? Yeah, he's pushing the button. He's over there. What are you doing over there? Are you playing solitaire again on the computer?
I'm prepping my researches to fact check myself before we.
But you jump on here, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, well that's fine too. Old Pro Roofing here in town, 817-734-2756 will get you John Williams, who is a very fine young man, roofing specialist, and you need to deal with Old Pro because they are local roofers. Now we have other good roofers here in town, but I always tell people to be cautious about who you deal with when they're knocking on your door and trying to sell you because they're, that's fine if they want to do that for a living, but you want to deal with local folks and particularly Old Pro because they've been here for a while. They're members of the chamber. They're members of the community. They do good work for not just good roofing, but also good things for the community. So 817-734-2756. And supposedly we're going to have bad weather. Now I'm still a skeptic because I'm watching the news last night. And, that Armageddon they were forecasting back on Sunday or something for this coming week it'll rain here, it'll rain there. And here's that. You ever notice this, Josh? You ever watch the news? You ever watch the weather? And they're doing the weather report and the forecast. They show all these, radar predictions. How do they know it's going to rain here but not there? I don't know how they do these things. So that's why I don't trust them. I think it's magic. Anyway,
Listen, I'm a producer, not a meteorologist.
Yeah, that's right. All right. What do you sound like Dr. McCoy on Star Trek? I'm a doctor, Jim, not a mechanic. That kind of thing. You ever watch the old Star Trek?
Yep.
And he always was saying that. And, and Scotty's going, I work as fast as I can, Captain. Anyway, do I have my link here yet? I'm just.
Let me get you that.
All right. Anyway, the also Opro Roofing. Thank you, John. Also, thank you to Jeff Kelly. He's whom I'm meeting with next Monday over at Gina's with the Weathington Agency. 817-781-0546 is his number. Jeff at jeffkellyrealty.com. He did the presentation today at the BNI meeting, and it's always very informative. It isn't just, hey, use me and that kind of thing. He talks about what's going on in the markets in this area, what's going on in the other markets and other areas, and with rates and whatever else, and what you need to look for and things of that nature. So it's really a very productive presentation. So give Jeff a holler. Also, my friend Rod Lewis over at the Burleson News Express, local news for Burleson. He's probably out with it today. Wednesday's usually when he puts it out at the various locations. There's about 12, I'm saying about 20 locations now. He's been adding locations. Where I usually get it is over Daydream. They have okay, I just got a text from the wife. You got to answer that, right?
Yeah.
She doesn't know I'm on the air. She didn't care what I do. Anyway, Burleson News Express, if you're looking to get your word out, either through some content, he has, space in the paper he needs to fill, and also if you want to, definitely he would take your advertising. This is a good way to get your word out because you're going to get a lot of hang on, I'm recording myself here. Anyway,
We're doing great.
I am. I'm really just. What is the matter with me today? I guess I'm so worked up about this business. I just can't concentrate. Back to Rod. Anyway, if you're looking for advertisement, you're looking for content, we're looking to get the word out, pick up one of the newspapers at Daydream. I know it's at the Senior Center, it's at the library, it's at City Hall. It's at Gina's and Otto's places all around. So you can get it in a lot of different locations. He's added a couple more locations since I've been here. Several of the salons and spas have them. So while you're waiting, you can take a look. So it's really a pretty good thing. Also, our latest sponsor, thank you to Emily and Will Cobb, a brother and sister combo that do True Climate Heating and Cooling, 682-244-2019. They're going to be coming to our house in about 3 weeks to do an inspection. And here's what I really respected. I asked Emily, how often do I need to be inspected? And she told me the real answer, not the, you need to get on this routine about every 3 months or whatever. She told me this is about, I'll let y'all talk to her to find out how many times you need it, but I told her the age of my system and how we take care of it. And she said, this is how long you need to do it, not every week or whatever. So 682-244-2019. Call Emily. Will probably pick up the phone. And y'all could schedule an inspection if you need repairs. It's coming up on the spring, and your air conditioner is going to start running, and that's a bad time to find out you're not in good shape when it's 89 degrees and rising outside. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. All right. I'm going to concentrate now. No more text, no more stuff. Okay, and there you go. Here we go. When we're talking about... We're talking about the, let me try this again. When we're talking about Iran, there's a long, long history with Iran, a very long history. And so for us to just say, we need to treat them like we do others and all this other stuff, I think if you really understood what was going on in the world on these things, it'd be very difficult for you to say that this is just your typical opponent. Iran occupies a pretty unique place, shall we say, in our history in terms of our dealings in the Middle East. And we're not just talking about dealing with somebody that's an opponent of ours. We are dealing with somebody that, from the very founding of the Islamic Republic, has sworn our death. All right, and no two ways about it. We're not talking about they implied it or they made vague threats. They have said very clearly that our destruction is part of their mission as a nation, because they find us as a nation, not just because of our Western ways, which they despise and loathe, but also because they see us as supportive of Israel and preventing them from doing any of those other things that they want to do there. They see us as the exporter of Western culture and values, which they find abhorrent, And so we're not talking about a group of people that just don't like us. They hate us, and that's why they end every prayer on Fridays with "Death to America, death to Israel." Every time. This isn't just something that came up lately. They've been doing this for 47 years. That's how they end their Friday evening prayers. Is a "Death to America" chant. So we don't have to read between the lines or try to read their mind as to what they want. So how did we get to this place with this country in the first place? Because in my days in high school, we never thought about Iran until they took over that embassy. So let's kind of go over some background with Iran. Up until 1979, Iran was run by the Shah of Iran, Reza Pahlavi, who also, his son has that name. And so we'll get to him in a minute. And Shah of Iran was Western. He was very pro-American. He had his secret police that would crack down on militant Muslim groups. He had a real, very contentious relationship with some of the Muslim clerics in that country because they saw him as selling out Islamic values in favor of the Americans. But the Iranian women dressed as they pleased. They had a high degree of women in business and education. They had a tolerance for some of the minority groups in it. See, that's another thing is in Iran, there's as far as like Persian or Iranian, as we want to call them, only about 60% of their population actually is Persian. The rest are various other groups like Kurds and Arabs and things of that nature, Turks, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, they despised the Shah because of his pro-Western groups, and particularly the man who despised him the most was this man right here. His name is Ruhollah Khomeini. Now, he died in 1989. We'll get to that. But Khomeini was in Paris, and he was sending a lot of cassette tapes, which shows you the time they were in, encouraging an Iranian revolution. And he also was Death to America. He was the one who began to try to create an Islamic republic. And so I believe in February of 79 of that year, the Shah of Iran was deposed by Khomeini, and an Islamic Republic was founded. And the Shah was sent to Hawaii for exile, not just because the United States wanted to accept him, but also he had cancer, which he died of not too long afterwards. But that was going to get cancer treatments in Hawaii, and Carter let him in. And because of that, they swore eternal vengeance against the United States, which they already had anyway. So it led to this particular event here, which was the storming of the embassy in November. And they took over this embassy and destroyed a lot of American property, whatever else. And it also resulted in 52 hostages, which is the next slide, I believe. 52 hostages. And they were held hostage for over a year. And it was one of the dominating themes of the 1980 election between Carter and Reagan. And I just remember it was a senior in high school. But this was going on. This happened when I was a senior in high school. Day by day by day, we're getting updates about what was going on with these hostages. And the TV news network show, Nightline, started over this. It was day 28, day 410, whatever it was. I mean, they were counting through the days of how many days they had hostages. And the whole Nightline episode was about this. Reagan, of course, wins the election, and the day he's inaugurated, like literally within 10 minutes of him taking the oath, they released the hostages. And a lot of people were saying that there was some sort of deal struck and all this other crap, or, and the Republicans are saying they were just so afraid of big, Ron Bo, as we called him, Ronnie Reagan, that they had to give it up. I don't like to dwell in those conspiracy theories because it's a lot of rabbit holes that you can follow. But anyway, so the hostages were freed. And then in the 1980s, Iran and Iraq had a brutal war. And we somewhat supported the Iraqis in this, a lot, which is ironic because a lot of the weaponry we faced in the Iraq wars in 91 and then about 10 years later was American equipment. Okay, because we had given it to them to help kill as many Iranians as possible. Well, they come to a truce in 88. In 89, Khomeini dies. He's replaced by this man, Ali Khamenei. And see, a lot of people get confused because their names are so similar, but Ali Khamenei is the man that was just killed a couple of days ago. He's been a ruler of Iran for 89, and this guy is hardcore. Okay, this guy is hardcore. Well, so is Khamenei, but Khamenei is very hardcore. They are highly, highly intolerant of non-Muslim ways of life, and not just non-Muslim, but non-Shiite Muslim ways of life. Their sworn enemies are not just the United States and Israel. It's also the Sunni Muslims or the non-Shiite Muslims. The division between Sunni and Shiite predates us by like a millennium and a half. I mean, since almost the founding of Islam. And the Sunnis and the Shiites hate each other in a way that it's hard to understand. It's very similar to those Catholic Protestant wars of the 16th and 17th centuries. And so he brings in this very, very oppressive regime. Now, they have the characterizations of democracy, but they really don't have the true spirit of democracy. Now, all the opponents, all the contestants in these elections are chosen by the Supreme Council and him personally, or was. There was no real freedom there. They cracked down extremely hard on the Shiite Muslim, and an extreme version of it, interpretation of how life should be lived, dress codes for women and very restricted access for them for education and other things. They are very oppressive about dissent, political or religious. And so Iran, particularly for about the last 40 years, has been living under a brutal theocracy. Now, to support that theocracy, they also will export it. In other words, they exported the terrorism. They have been the number one sponsor of terror for 4 decades. By far. Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shiite militias in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon. They cause disruption everywhere they go. They have been disruptive in Saudi Arabia. They've been disruptive in Jordan. They've been disruptive in just about every one of their non-Shiite neighbors, which outside of Iran, almost all of the Muslim nations are some version of Sunni. And so they have been exporting this, and they've killed thousands of people in the Middle East, people in American citizens over there. We've had, like, for example, in 1983, we lost 241 service members in Beirut after they terrorist bomb took out at one of our barracks there. They have killed Americans in Iraq. They've killed Americans in Syria. They have killed thousands upon thousands of their own citizens, including 32,000 in this recent uprising, which was caused by their economic collapse. Now, so that's kind of the background. Now, in 2015, well, let me back up before I go to there. From the beginning, the Iranian government wanted a nuclear capability. Now, they say it's for energy, which I find to be kind of ironic since they're one of the most oil-rich countries in the world. But they say they need it for nuclear capabilities, for energy, and for other purposes, not a bomb. And so, Khamenei said, hey, we don't want a bomb, which you can't trust. But that's what he said about 25 years ago. Oh, we're not looking for a bomb. And the Clinton administration, the Bush administration tried to deal with agreements with Iran, which they broke. And then 2015, here comes Obama. And now I'm going to try to be as nonpartisan about some of this as I can, but I got to say, honestly, this deal that Obama made with the Iranians was the worst thing he did in his presidency. You could find some things that we like about Obama, and you can talk about that all you want, but in my opinion, this trumps it all, so to speak, no pun intended. Because what he said basically in this deal, which was not ratified by the Congress, by the Senate at all, it was not even presented to the Senate for discussion. It was just here, the president signs it, boom, it's an executive decision, and there you go. Basically, we were going to lift all the sanctions. Basically, we were going to pay them $400 million in currency, which they used to fund all these other things. So we know that to be true because we have the records of it. And they weren't funding food programs or anything else for the people. They were funding Hamas and Hezbollah. And we know that because we got their Hezbollah and Hamas's records. They also, the agreement was that they would quit. They would enrich the uranium for the nuclear weaponry up into a certain point, and then stop. And we'd have to take their word for it. We would not have American inspectors or international inspectors go in and check it. They basically said, here's our documentation, and we'd have to take it at face value. It was incredible. I was astounded that we could be so stupid. John Kerry, our Secretary of State, said, we're not stupid. I said, yes, you are. You're relying on the Iranians who hate us, who want to destroy us, that they're going to be honest with us about their nuclear capabilities. Well, Trump wins, of course, in 2016. He breaks the agreement. Since it's not a treaty, he doesn't have to go to Senate to do it. He just says we're not going to abide by it. He puts hard sanctions on them, and they start drifting back towards they were before, which is economic collapse. Then Mr. Biden comes in and he says, I want to revive it again. And so he goes the next 3.5, 4 years chasing after them to get into agreement. And every time they would come to some sort of understanding, they would move the goalposts a little bit further and Biden would meet them. And then they move the goalposts a little further and Biden would meet them. Well, you could imagine my opinion about that. Anyway, so Trump comes in, he puts these very hard sanctions on them. And then October 7th of 2023 happens, and that's when Hamas invaded Israel. And Israel just said, no more. We're not going through this again. And they began bombing the crap out of Gaza, of course. A lot of people are very upset about that. And then, of course, in summertime, we bomb the United States and Israel bomb Iran and their nuclear capabilities. And supposedly we were in some sort of new negotiations last week with the Iranians about their program because the economy is totally collapsing. And therefore, they wanted to renegotiate that agreement. But again, they refused to move off of the nuclear enrichment program. They said, we're not going to do that. Plus, the fact is the United States wanted them to bring a certain amount of political freedoms and quit killing their own people. There's been estimated about 32,000 people have been killed in January and in early February. And they said, we're not going to do it. And mostly because Khamenei and his leadership group and the Iranian security forces, the Iranian Guard, National Guard, refused to budge one iota. And what is also happening during this falderall is a lot of the Iranian leadership were funneling money to Switzerland and making their exits. And while the people of Iran literally are without water, without electricity, without hardly any ability to provide food for their family, the Iranian leadership is plundering the treasury as much as they can to make their getaway. What made it even worse was that the children of these leaders and whatnot, they'd lived in London, they lived in Paris, they lived in Geneva, and they would post back on the Iranian social media the good life they're having. And here I am, some poor struggling Iranian, my children are starving, and I'm watching the son or daughter of some Iranian big shot living the life. That's as much as anything sparked the revolutions beginning in December. That and the total collapse of their currency called the rial. So that's what we got up to today. I have a news clip that was from Sunday night. The last couple of days would, basically be redundant of that. But Josh, if you'd run that clip, please.
On the second day of this joint U.S.-Israeli war on Iran, Israeli jets pounded what Israeli officials described as military targets in central Tehran. Iran is firing back, and now there are American casualties. U.S. Central Command reported 3 American service members were killed in action. 2 officials tell NBC News they were killed in Kuwait, where the U.S. has large bases.
We grieve for the true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation.
Tonight, President Trump called on Iran to surrender, saying its military is collapsing.
The entire military command is gone as well, and many of them want to surrender into saving their lives. They want immunity. They're calling by the thousands.
Will you stop just for a
2
second?
officials with direct knowledge of current intelligence.
Just a sec. I'm not trying to make a comment about Trump, but do you hate the way he speaks? That little sing-song voice he has.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just like, they're calling by the thousands. Okay. Was a comment. I'm not saying what he's saying is bad. His speaking style kind of rubs me the wrong way, but whatever. I'm just an old crank. Go ahead.
Back to it.
tell NBC News the Iranian government no longer controls all of its military and that some units are now operating independently, a potential recipe for chaos. In an interview with Al Jazeera today, Iran's foreign minister acknowledged some units are cut off.
Our military units are now, in fact, independent and somehow isolated.
Israel's defense minister said Israeli jets can now fly over Tehran unopposed, carrying out strikes at will. Explosions ripped through the Iranian capital, home to more than 10 million people. Israel and the United States have been systematically targeting and killing Iran's leaders, including the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. In Tehran today, tens of thousands rallied in Revolution Square to mourn, showing support for the government, even amid the airstrikes. Many here today were calling for revenge. But outside of Tehran, signs that Iran's embattled opposition is feeling emboldened. A few Iranians went out to dance after learning the supreme leader was dead. Iran's main target remains Israel. Today, a ballistic missile hit the town of Beit Shemesh outside of Jerusalem. It was the deadliest attack on Israel since the start of this conflict. All of this damage here was caused by a single ballistic missile that directly hit a shelter. So far, Israeli officials are talking about at least 9 people killed. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today showed he's not afraid, announcing the death of Khamenei to Israelis while standing on top of Israel's Defense Ministry building in Tel Aviv. But there are growing signs that this war could spiral out of control. This oil tanker set on fire off the coast of Oman, and Oman's port attacked, even though the country has tried to broker a peace deal between Iran and the United States.
Richard is joining us now from Tel Aviv. And Richard, you talk about the potential for things to spiral, and already we're seeing conflict erupt in the region more broadly.
Hallie, one thing that I'm watching with great concern tonight is what is happening in Iraq. Iraq shares a border with Iran. The Iranian government has a tremendous amount of influence over what happens inside Iraq. And today, large crowds of pro-Iranian demonstrators tried to enter the so-called green zone and swarm the U.S. embassy. It is something that I know U.S. military officials are watching very closely.
Richard Engel.
All right, thanks, buddy.
And remember,
hey, be quiet, Tom. Anyway, I think I had the headline from the New York Times from the morning I woke up. I woke up Saturday morning, and I had my 3 or 4 people posting me, saying, texting me, saying, "Hey, what do you think of this?" I'm like, "Think of what?" And then I went to find this and that kind of thing. And Khamenei is dead, and I can't say I'm sad because, like I said, he has been responsible for the murders of countless people, hundreds of thousands. And he has brought grief and misery to the whole region and to us. So I can't say that I'm really upset by that. But that's, a lot of people think, well, that's a pretty hard thing to say. But, I can only ask people who are alive in 1945, May of 1945, when they heard that Hitler was dead. Were they dancing or were they mourning? And so... And here's another thing. I'll give NBC News some credit because they've been pretty balanced in their coverage of this. They showed a whole segment about what they call the diaspora of Iranians that have escaped their country or their parents did and they've grown up here in America. And they were all in L.A. dancing and singing and carrying on because L.A. has one of the biggest concentrations of Iranian nationals or descendants in our country. And they were just in tears how happy they were that this man was gone, because he had caused so much grief and so many deaths to people they knew and loved. So there you go. Now, as far as what Mr. Engel there said, that the Iran made a critical mistake by taking the war to their Arab neighbors, which should tell you something. The Arab countries pointedly told Trump, do not involve us in this. Now, that's not to say they were unenthusiastic. They were glad to see it happen, but they did not want to be involved. Saudi Arabia wouldn't let us use bases, neither would Bahrain or Oman. They basically, this was going to be done all from aircraft carriers and from Israel. And so the point is that Saudis and the rest were trying to sit this out, and they got attacked themselves. And so that the Iranians have been a plague to their neighbors since this Islamic Republic took over, and they start lashing out, and they bombed Oman, they bombed Bahrain yesterday, they bombed Dubai. Now, did they do a lot of damage? Not really. They did some damage. They bombed a hotel in Dubai, 5-star hotel, which is a big deal. To Dubai, that's their lifeblood, they think. They also sent a missile into Turkey that was shot down by NATO, which surprises me that NATO got involved. But Turkey was targeted by Iranian missiles. Of course, Israel was. But the point is they spread this to all their neighbors when their neighbors really made it clear publicly that they did not want to be brought into this because they knew this could happen, and it has. And so the strike against other countries was just stupid. And then yesterday I'm reading in the paper that the Israelis struck the meeting of the people that were trying to choose the new government. So the successors also got wiped out. Josh, did you hear how this first raid first happened?
No.
Oh, well, it was early Saturday morning, our time. And over there it was daylight, right? And most of the time these meetings of high-ranking Iranians are done during the day in broad daylight because they didn't think that the Israelis or Americans would attack at broad daylight because of the danger it might present. And so Khamenei and his leadership were in one room at one time, and the Israelis knew it. I tell you, these Israeli defense and intelligence don't play. If they still use that expression?
Don't play?
Don't,
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, I want to be hip, Anyway, they were all in a room one time at the same time, and they got obliterated. So again, they meet yesterday to try to choose new leaders, and they get obliterated. I mean, they're not really picking up on the clue that basically the Israelis know where you are. And I still remember back in the summer when all those cell phones started blowing up on members of Hezbollah. That's probably pretty exciting. Now, will it impact us? You bet it will. I think the next slide shows the Strait of Hormuz, which I hope you could see. First of all, the photo or the picture on the left shows the amount of traffic that goes through the Strait of Hormuz. About 20% of the world's oil goes through that strait. Now, only about 20% of that 20% is going through, and it's going through with military protection. And so, yeah, we're going to have higher gas prices. You can bet on it. I've already seen it. Have you seen it?
Yep.
What'd you pay?
Not happy about it.
You're not happy? Well,
Nope.
I found the last place. I don't know if it's still, but when I heard about this Monday, I went and got gas, and there was the last place that still had it for $2.27. It was the gas station over by the neighborhood Walmart. Almost everybody else was bumped up to $2.87 or $2.89 rather, or $2.79 or something like that. And it's probably going to be higher than that. Now, is it because America can't produce enough oil? No, we got enough oil, but this is a world product, and so other countries are going to be hurting more than us, and it's going to affect our prices.
Yep. Plus, you're going to have to deal with the what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of people thinking, oh, well, gas is bumping up, so I'm going to go grab gas now.
Yeah, the panic buying.
The panic buying.
Yeah, or they're going to run to the store.
Raises because of that.
Or they're going to go to the grocery store and get the toilet paper, whatever, because they're afraid that the Iranians are going to wipe us out. Anyway, but anyway, but you'll see some of that. But see, a lot of the smart companies that buy it in bulk have already bought it, and so I don't see us having like a situation like we had like when I was in high school. We had massive oil shortages. Gas went up to like $1.56 when I was in high school, and you say, hey, $1.56, I'd take that. That's about $4.50 to $5 in today's money. And when the minimum wage is $2.50 or like $2.42 or something like that, you're basically working 45 minutes for a gallon of gas. Now, with the minimum wage what it is, or like the average wage what it is, it's nothing close to that. So yeah, gas is going to go up. It'll probably top over $3 in some other places. It'll be higher than that. We have enough domestic production. One problem we do have is that we don't have the strategic oil reserve because Mr. Biden emptied it out practically to try to keep gas prices low during his administration. That strategic reserve is meant for situations just like this. So we don't have that. But anyway, I'm going to also talk about the economic situation briefly and my prognostications and whatnot. first of all, the rial, the currency of Iran, is totally worthless. It's not even worth wallpaper. And so my point, and my cousin brought this up to me, I'll give him credit for making this point, we can end a lot of this right now. If we went to the Iranian military and said, look, you throw down your weapons, you pledge not to fight and whatever else, we'll give you $1,000 American currency. They would take that in a heartbeat. That's what, right now it's a barter society in Iran, and they're not taking their own currency. And so these soldiers people are worried about the soldiers in the military. They're not getting paid, and they're not going to get paid. And why are they going to take a bullet for the Ayatollah who's dead, and for a regime that doesn't keep their word about any of this, about their security and about and they have families to feed and all this other stuff? I'd be surprised if you don't see mass defections pretty soon. And Trump referred to that when I was making fun of his speaking style, but he did say that would be happening. And I believe that to be true because, if I'm just some rank and file soldier, I'm not going to take a bullet for this guy and have my family starve to death. So that you'll see, I bet you're going to see whole regiments coming over. Now, are there going to be some hardcores? You betcha they are. That Iranian National Guard, that's what their Revolutionary Guard actually is what they call it, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. These are the hardcore types. These are the SS types from the old Nazi days and whatever else. And they're not going to go down without a fight because they know that they're going to be facing tribunals. You got to look at the situation with Iran somewhat similar to what happened after Nazi Germany. Okay? If people think that we're going to be rounding up people, Iranians, by the thousands for trials. That's not going to happen, but we will probably try their leaders. But we still going to have people that run the electric works and the water works, and a lot of people, that were not responsible for this. And so we're not going to be having wholesale roundups, but probably the leadership we will. And they'll be put on tribunals and whatnot, and they know it. So they're going to go down in flames, but I think a lot of people around them will say, that's for you, buddy, forget it. And, this idea that they're, I never understood this point. He said, if you are a martyr for the cause, you get to go to heaven with 70 Virginians. Is that what they say?
Yeah. Is that OG Virginia or West Virginia?
Yeah, I don't know. Virginians, they're nice people, but I don't want to spend all my eternity with them. But anyway, but so, I'm kind of optimistic. Now, it's not going to be neat and whatever. It wasn't after into World War II. It took a while to get Nazi Germany back into shape, and then it had all the other business about division of the country and on and on. It's another history lesson. But the point is, the part that we were responsible for, it took a couple of years before it got back on its feet, and Germany was equally as devastated and whatever else. And after Japan, it took a couple of years to get them back on their feet. So, if the critics say, are impatient with the progress that would be made, they're just doing it for political purposes. It's going to take a while before Iran is back to any kind of semblance of normality because there's too much destruction, whatever else. Another reason, though, I am optimistic is that the Iranian people are not Afghanis or they're not Iraqis even. They're much more westernized and sophisticated, and they always have been. That's one reason why the Ayatollahs hated America so much, because they thought they were polluting the Iranian youth with modern dress and rock and roll and discos and all this other business. Well, discos, I got you on that one. But as far as the rest of it, they're saying that that American and Western culture was polluting their culture and environments and whatever else. But the Iranians were the best educated, the most Western in the whole region. And Iranians themselves still, even today, are still more pro-American than most. Now, yes, I'm sure they got their issues. And yes, there's going to be a segment of the population that are going to be loyal to the Ayatollah, and that's their problem. But the reason why I'm optimistic is they have practiced in democracy as limited as it's been for 40 years. So we're not going to have to introduce a whole new system like we tried in Afghanistan or Iraq. The Iranians know how to vote, and they have had political parties, and they know how to run elections, and yada, yada, yada. So I am optimistic that eventually, not tomorrow, not by summertime, but eventually they're going to be on their feet again because they have, I believe, the cultural roots and the attitudes and the want to, for the most part, for the most of the people, to re-engage with the West as a country. Now, it's going to be painful in some cases. There's going to be militant groups. Even after World War II, there were groups of SS hardcore types that formed guerrilla outfits out in the woods, these werewolf groups, they used to call them. And for about 6 months, we had to deal with them. We had to deal with Japanese that would not surrender in the Pacific after VJ Day. So you're going to see some of that. And you're going to see the media probably make a big deal out of it. Oh, see, that shows the Iranians aren't on board. I'm telling you right now, the vast majority of the Iranians will welcome being re-engaged with the West again. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't care about them being Muslim. I don't think Trump cares if they're Muslim. All he wants is to make money and have his name put on something over there or whatever. But but I don't care if they're Muslim. I don't care if they're a conservative form of Muslim. Just don't be oppressive. Don't beat your women. Don't kill your women like they did about 3 years ago that sparked another riot. She was not wearing the proper headdress, so they killed her. Don't have your jails full of political prisoners. Don't be a threat to all your neighbors. You want to be Muslim and follow, that kind of lifestyle, get after it. I'm not there to make a difference on that, but I'm just saying I have optimism that this could happen. Now, here's a critical question. What about the constitutionality of it? All right, this is going to be more complex. All right, here's the thing. I am on the record, and I don't shy from that, about the business in Venezuela having very suspect constitutional authorities. Okay? Venezuela is not a threat to us in any real way. They're annoying, and they were part of a group of people that were, maybe threatening, but they were a minor player. I had real constitutional issues with that. I have less so with this one. The reason being is that the Constitution does clearly state that in times of emergencies, the president can act in unilateral ways. Now, again, the term emergency has been misused by presidents for the last 40 years. Everything is an emergency, requiring dictatorial authorities and all this other stuff. And so that's why a lot of people are skeptical, because it's been so misused. But I do believe Iran constitutes what is an imminent threat. I saw an interview with Mark Warner, the Virginia senator, and I just want to throw something at the screen. He said, Iran was not an imminent threat. I don't see the justification for this war. How could it not be an imminent threat when you have a country that's dedicated to our destruction, trying to create a nuclear bomb and on the verge of doing so? That is an imminent threat. They don't have to be walking down the street in AK-47s, as one told me. They don't have to be, moving in on tanks. It doesn't have to be 9/11. When you got a country that is dedicated to the destruction, not just of Israel or ally, but also to us, I consider that to be an imminent threat and have been for years. This isn't new. For me, if people have been paying attention to this, they have been an imminent threat. Obama tried to deal with it his way, and it failed. And, when I hear people get constitutional about it, I dismiss the politicians for one thing, but if it's conversation with peers, colleagues, friends, et cetera, I know what they're saying. I respect what they're saying. I disagree that this doesn't constitute the level of threat. How about you, Josh? You want to throw in some stuff? I'm not going to make you do it, Well, I mean, because, it's frightening time, right?
Yeah, it is.
No,
I just don't want to go to war.
Yeah,
I don't want to go to war for Israel, and I don't. You can ask anyone from my generation, and they'll probably give you the same thing. We don't want to go to war for a country that we're so fundamentally disagree with.
Well, I get it. No, I get it. I am pro-Israel, but I know a lot of people your generation aren't. Or they have issues with Israel. I'll put it that way.
I'm pro-Jewish. Love the Jewish people. Have really good Orthodox and Messianic Jewish friends of mine. I am anti-Zionist, though.
Well,
and I think that's a distinction that needs to be made going forward. Is that Israel as a nation state is not the Jewish people; it's a Zionist.
Well, and that's true there, certainly. And I don't believe that whatever the state of Israel does is beyond criticism. Okay, that's not it at all. I mean, yeah, the fact that they're a Jewish nation still, if they're going to be a nation state, they're going to be treated like a nation state and with all that comes with it. So, and there are things that Israel's done that I haven't agreed with. But my view on Israel is more rooted in the fact that I think that they have a right to be there and to exist, and that it doesn't give them a free pass on how everybody's treated there. But they see it as an existential threat every day. And when they came flying out, or pouring out of Gaza, rather, I'm sorry, when Hamas came coming out of Gaza in October 7th of 2023, I think Israel said, no more. And we're not going to allow this to be our life. I know a lot of people your age have the same view. That's kind of why I asked, because, I mean, a lot of people, in the late 20s or 30s, like you are. I thought you were 28, you said?
I'm 29.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I'm not asking for ID. But a lot of people have that same opinion. Yeah. My opinion is they have a right to exist and a right to defend themselves.
I agree with you there, but that doesn't excuse their right to exist and their, I guess, say and who exists with them are two separate things.
Yeah. Well, I'm not, I guess that's a legitimate point, but my point would be that they have gone through so many of these kind of events with Hamas and Hezbollah for decades that they're past the point of embracing a multicultural Israel. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if that's going to be solvable. But, I know I asked several people your age, and yours is the majority view. Okay, my generation, I couldn't tell you, but I think a lot of people think like I do. Yeah. But that's okay. I'm glad you put it out there. And it wasn't so bad, was it?
I think a reason for that is, I mean, I've only lived in an America that's been at a war with the Middle East. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've never lived in a country that has not been at war in the Middle East.
Well,
and I think a lot of people my age and slightly older and younger, either delving into millennials or Gen Z, were just kind of sick of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's another thing, though. When I was I was your age, but I was also, in high school, college, your age. Our main opponent was the Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. And they had the capability of destroying us multiple times. But we could destroy them as well. And the Russians, for whatever you want to say about them, they were rational people. They knew that if they bombed us, we'd bomb them and we'd both go down. And they didn't want that to happen. They were playing the long game. Same with China. And I had that, we all had that hangover of the nuclear wars. They had the movie Day After. And when I was a senior in college, and it was a major talking point and event, then, and you had Sting putting out songs. I hope the Russians love their children too. And, on and on and on. But the truth of the matter is, I never really felt like I was going to be bombed. And I'm not really worried about Iran bombing Los Angeles or San Francisco or something like that. What I am worried is that they get nuclear capability and they smuggle in a weapon and put it in Riyadh or Tel Aviv or Cairo or Los Angeles. And with our borders being as porous as they were last administration, smuggling a weapon across the borders would not be a hard thing. And I could just see some guy with a suitcase-sized nuclear weapon just putting it in the middle of Times Square, dropping it in front of Broadway, going about his business. An hour later, boom, Broadway's gone. Yeah, that's what I worried about.
Oh yeah, and I'm worried about that too. We're not in disagreement there.
Yeah, and so that's why I think this had to happen. And as far as the constitutionality of it, I think this really did pose an imminent threat because they said this is what we're going to do. Russians wouldn't have done that. They wouldn't have bombed New York. They'd rather have us capitulate to them and they take over New York. Yeah. There's a movie came out about 40 years ago called Red Dawn, and they made a remake of it, which was terrible. But the first movie,
I saw the remake. I didn't like it.
I didn't like it, but the original is so corny. They're showing these high school kids blasting out RPGs and thinking, what the hell are they teaching these kids in high school? But anyway, let's go talk about
American Dream.
Yeah, American Dream. Blowing up commies, stacking them in like cordwood.
One more thing I do want to say.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a winner in the game of preemptive strikes. Mm-hmm. And yes, I agree with you that Iran could very well be considered an imminent threat. Mm-hmm. But if we strike, if the the method is strike them before they get to us, that only engages in retaliatory strikes, and then it just snowballs from there.
Well, that's what they've been doing, but I think sooner or later they're going to run out of weaponry. And that's all there's to it. Of course, just talk about us, but let's talk about
how much the taxpayers want to keep paying for it, too.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the primaries. I'm going to be running out of time.
Yeah, let's move
Of course, we had a lot of fun with the primaries. You know, go ahead and throw. I think the one that has the results on it. Let's see which slide that. There, that's the one. The first one. This is you see the state of Texas here. This is the Republican one, and the orangish colors, if you will, are Cornyn won, rather. Sorry, Cornyn won like the orange areas, and Paxton won the yellow areas. And I'm a little surprised at this one because hang on, I'm not done.
Sorry.
Anyway, the polls had show Paxton to be in the lead in this 3-person race, and he actually come in second by 2 points roughly. Is that about 1.2. There you go. Do my math. And so the polls, either Paxton underperformed or Cornyn overperformed. And you look at the map, Cornyn performed best in all the metropolitan areas. My opinion of Mr. Paxton's well stated, but I'm going to state it again. I think he's the worst candidate the Republicans have ever put up for any office, period. He's not just a bad politician. He's not a good person, all right? He has been indicted for fraud, securities fraud. He's been sanctioned by the government for violating whistleblower laws that cost the state $6.6 million. He was impeached by a majority Republican House. The majority of Republicans in the House, I think 23 voted against impeachment, and the 54 voted for it. By 2-1 almost, they voted for his impeachment. The only reason he wasn't kicked out of office is Dan Patrick ran the trial, and it was a farce. He has not just cheated on his wife, he's cheated on the woman he's cheated with. Well, that's a doubleheader, isn't it? And so I will not be voting for Ken Paxton in any capacity. And they said, well, you're just voting for the opposition. Give me better candidates than Republican Party. If that's really what happens, I don't agree with that statement, but if that really what happens, give me better candidates. And will Cornyn beat Paxton or vice versa? Historically, somebody like Paxton will win the runoff because his supporters are more diehard than Cornyn's will. But the next 2.5 months, we're going to see some pretty ugly ads coming our way. And it's going to be pretty nasty. But that's my point about Mr. Paxton. It astounds me that the Republican Party that's adamant about getting the 10 Commandments in schools going to put somebody in office who says, well, number 6 really doesn't count. It's really the 9 Commandments. It's astounding to me. They talk about law and order in the Republican Party, and they put a man that's been on trial almost his whole career, and he got impeached by his own party, and that they're going to put this man in the U.S. Senate. It's astounding to me. So give me better candidates, Republican Party, and don't give me this, well, if you don't vote for him, you just vote for James Talarico. Well, like I said, I'm not going to be blackmailed into voting for somebody I know to be totally disreputable and dishonorable. All right. Now, as far as Talarico and Crockett, I mean, that's the next slide. What was interesting here is that Talarico won pretty handily, and Crockett is doing what Crockett does. She's blaming racism, and the Republicans for how she lost. Do you have that clip that she had in her speech there, what she was going?
I do.
Okay.
Just a moment.
Right. Anyway, she's blaming everybody else. And she said that the Republicans caused her to lose. And oh, that's stupid, because the Republicans, if anything, desperately wanted Crockett to win because she'll be beatable so easily. Talarico is going to be a real threat to the Republican hold on that Senate seat, regardless if it's Paxton or Cornyn. If it's Cornyn, I think Cornyn has a better chance. If it's Paxton, Talarico will be your next senator from this state. Because of Talarico, I'll get to him in just a second, but Paxton, in contrast to Talarico, is going to be quite the contrast. And the Republicans always have a big advantage in these national or statewide races. I think that advantage will disappear if it's a Paxton-Talarico race. Do you have? Anyway, got the clip. All right, go ahead. Let her run. Hey,
Hello.
Come on, what are you doing?
Knowing that Dallas County is a big dump of votes.
Yeah, for you, girl.
We, in my opinion, will not know the election results overall tonight. We need to see the Dallas County votes to see where they are.
For sure.
I mean, if the early vote comes in, which we may have the early vote soon, if it comes in and I'm losing Dallas County, then we know kind of where this thing is going. So, so that's my news, is that we're not going to have election results tonight, in my opinion, based upon what specifically is taking place in Dallas County.
Whenever you win, girl.
Unfortunately, this is what Republicans like to do.
Yeah.
And so they specifically targeted Dallas County, and I think we all know why.
Yes, we do, girl.
So, I want you to enjoy yourselves, but I won't be back tonight because I have no idea of when we're going to get results, and I fully anticipate it won't be until tomorrow.
Yeah, all right, that's good enough. Okay, she's blaming the Republicans. What the deal is, the Republican legislature basically, or Republican Party said we want our separate polling areas because basically early voting is held in the same room. When we early voted, my wife and I, both of the parties were there. But on election day yesterday, they had separate polling areas, and why that is, I think, I don't think it had anything to do with what Ms. Crockett had to say. And so for the Republicans to cost her that race, they'd be shooting themselves in the foot, reloading and shooting themselves in the other foot because Crockett would have gotten beat by 15 points regardless who the Republican was. Now, with Talarico, whoever the Republican is, they're going to have their hands full. It's going to be like a replay of Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz back in 2018. Talarico, is openly professes faith and has a theological outlook. Now, I'm not going to say I agree with every aspect of his theological outlook. Say the right word, dummy. I don't agree with some of his stances on scriptural matters. That's immaterial. He's a Democrat that actually says, I have these beliefs in the scripture. That's rare. And it's going to connect with a lot of people. His politics are very progressive. He's no conservative or moderate at all, but he's going to connect because he didn't have all this baggage. And if he's running against Paxton, holy Toledo, what a contrast that's going to be. My guess is this, that if it's Cornyn and Talarico, Cornyn will barely beat Talarico like Cruz barely beat O'Rourke by 2 or 3 points because Cornyn is a known name and whatever else. And the Republicans are going to have money. There's a Republican lean to this state and whatever else. If it's Paxton, Talarico will be your next senator. And the thing about it is, he wins this Senate seat in 2032, and in 2036, well, is it? Yeah, that'd be right. You're going to hear his name as a presidential or at least as a vice presidential candidate. I honestly believe that. I honestly believe that if he wins this Senate race, he'll be set up to be a main player in the conversations. And if the Democrats win in 28, then it'll be 36 before you hear it. If the Republicans hold on to the White House, whomever it is, then you'll hear his name in 32. And he's going to be a formidable candidate. And the money that's going to come in from out of state to help Talarico win is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be a flood zone. You're going to have outside money to help support Talarico like it did O'Rourke, but more so, and celebrities, and you're going to see him with the big names of the Democrat Party and all this other stuff. Get ready for it. So I'll go on the record here. Cornyn probably will beat Talarico, but I wouldn't bet my life on it. But if Paxton is a candidate, Republicans, you blew it. You blew a Senate seat that was yours to keep for the next 3 or 4 cycles. Because once Talarico gets it, he's going to be a big player in the Democrat politics. If he loses, you're still going to see him around. You might see him in other capacities. But if he wins, get ready for it. So I'm not telling you how to vote on that. I'm just saying, consider that if you are able to vote in the runoff in May. Who is eligible to vote in that runoff? If you voted in the Republican primary, you could vote the runoff. If you didn't vote at all, you could still vote in the runoff. If you voted the Democrat primary, you can't. So if you voted for Talrico or Crockett, your game is over. But the Republicans that voted or people who haven't voted, they're still eligible in that runoff. Okay. What about you? What did you think of yesterday's events?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't want to throw my hat in with any candidate here because we were talking before the show, and I kind of find myself in opposition of everyone currently in the state of politics. But I will say that Talrico hasn't done anything yet to make me dislike him.
Well,
he's very transparent. If you
yes, and
I'm on social media a lot. He pops up on my feed all the time. He's really transparent with what he wants and what he's got to do, and
exactly. I
appreciate that.
I saw his ads, and I didn't hear Trump's name once. And again, I like the fact that he's willing to put his faith out there. Again, I'm not going to say I agree with every aspect of it because I'm an old conservative Baptist and he is not. He's a liberal Presbyterian. That's fine, great, wonderful. That's between him and God. But I appreciate the fact. What are you laughing over there?
You guys are two sides or just opposite sides of the coin there. Good night.
Conservative Baptist? I mean, the right.
Liberal Presbyterian?
Liberal Presbyterian, Conservative Baptist. I'm on the right side of the coin, by the way.
No, I didn't say there was a wrong side of the coin. I said there's two sides of the coin.
Whatever. I'm just saying, at least I appreciate the fact that he doesn't hide from it and it shies away from, this is my faith, blah, 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 as opposed to others that, they're so wanting to be inclusive that they kind of downplay it or deny it.
And that's a good point. Because while I don't agree with his faith personally, I'd like that he's using it well and not using his faith to mask his own bigotry like some other people that I'm not going to name.
Ooh, you want me to name for you?
Go for it.
Oh, well, Paxton does it. I mean, if you're going to sit there and put 10 commandments in the room but not live by it, come on. If you're going to talk about family values and you're going to be cheating on your wife and cheating on your girlfriend.
Didn't Jesus say something about that?
He had a lot to say about that. He had a very dim view of that. But
anyways.
All right.
So I can appreciate Talrico. I have yet to have my unwavering support for him just yet, but we'll see.
I'll put my cards on the table. I voted for Cornyn, and I will again in May, and we'll see after that. Okay, I've already said I won't vote for Paxton because I'm going to hold on to my values, even if he doesn't hold on to his. And if the Republican Party of the state wants to follow a man like Ken Paxton, they can go without me. And that's all there is to it. I'm still a conservative. I'm still politically conservative. I don't need to define myself as a Republican to justify that. I don't need to, be able to be part of the political party just to justify my political views as conservative. Because most people I know think I'm pretty conservative politically, but I don't consider myself going to be following after a man like Ken Paxton or Dan Patrick for that matter. So there you go. Well, I just probably lost a couple of listeners over that one. We'll be hearing about this from a couple other people, but whatever. Anyway, so tomorrow at 2:00, I'm going to have the Joshua ISD Human Resource Director here. We're going to talk about school, about what's going on in that particular aspect of education. I won't be asking her about political stuff because they don't. Who needs that in their life, right? I don't like to ambush people with their politics unless it's Melissa Miller. I do enjoy that because it's fun.
It's entertaining.
It is. Or get Amber Case here to talk about it. Hey Amber, what do you think of this? No politics. So it's always fun. But thank you for squeezing me in your busy schedule, Josh. And I'm glad you put your 2 cents in. And it didn't bite your head off. See, it didn't hurt. No, okay. Not yet. Okay.
Waiting for the pings on Facebook to come in.
No. That's I don't know. But and believe me, when I find a new producer,
after they've lynched me,
No, it's all right. I appreciate you joining us. I appreciate the people that have been watching, and I hope you share this if you think it's worth it. I think it is, because I think I'm real smart. And so, not really. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock.